All right. Another thing is also I'm going to talk. I'm going to give the talk on the subject matter as a Sarvāstivāda path system or path structure. Uh, it's a little bit challenging topic, but it might be really fruitful and rewarding for someone. I think most of the people, even they might study Buddhism for a long time, not necessarily are familiar with this system. So particularly if you're interested in doing meditation and understand how the commentary or Abhidharma understand the path, I mean, there actually a lot of controversial or discussion going on, whether the path has to be understood in such a way. That's another matter. But we have to understand, especially after the Buddha passed away, and you have no such authoritative person would say, okay, you are doing correctly, you are doing rightly, or you are the one who attends somehow the sainthood. I guess even though might be some great master understand your practice, but in order just to prove you have reached that kind of stage of your practice, particularly if you want to prove that you have reached that state of sainthood, or you want to convince your master you're able to do so. It's not because you could perform supernatural power, because in a Buddhist tradition, to perform supernatural power had nothing to do to do with your attainment as a saint. I mean, it is believed that even some saints, maybe not many of them, is believed that, at least in the Buddhist tradition, believe that among the early Buddhist sutra also mentioned that you could be a saint or even high level saint without a supernatural power too. Although it's quite unlikely in certain sense, but still there's a probable. They are probable that you might not be having a supernatural power, even though you are become arahant or higher, even a higher attainment. So in that way, that's what, in other words, I want to say. Of course, even in the Buddhist history and in the Buddhist story, it's very famous that even the monk or even the practitioners, so some have a very highly supernatural power, but due to later on they being attracted to or being coaxed, I would say, to power or name, or even the king or the prince and so forth pursue them. So they might change their mind. They might not follow the correct path as a Buddhist understanding, but they still have quite a very powerful supernatural power. So that's why in the Buddhism, having a higher supernatural power is not identical to have a good attainment as a sainthood. So I think that this is the first thing I need to say. Since then, and then the path become one of the important, not just the way to show you the way or indicate the way how you should practice, but it's also become the important point to have a reference, even for the master, your teachers or masters, to know where you're almost gone, where you're almost there. So where you are, on what point you are. So today's talk, it will be only solely on the path according to the Sarvāstivāda system understanding. It is really, really, really a bulky system. And also there's so many things to read. And usually it's believed that if you have not studied more than 3 to 4 years of this subject matter, I don't think it's very easy for you to get through what they are. But nowadays, of course, once you have followed today's class, maybe you get much more sense when you learn the book, or when you happen to read those sastras or literature. So you might have a better sense of it. Okay, we will take about, say about 40 minutes every time. We take about, say, 40 minutes for the class, maybe 35 if I'm tired. And then we will just do about 10 minutes of meditation and then give you about 10 minutes break so that you can digest what you just learned. Okay. Now, let me just show you through the PowerPoint. I want to learn how to share this one as well. Just a moment. Now, the subject topic is the Sarvāstivāda Abhidharma path system, and I anyway just learn the term called Sarvāstivāda, and then well, I guess I would divide it into part 1, part 2, and part 3. Okay, and then actually this talk been invited by the Purdue Buddhist Society. Purdue Buddhist Society, and then the talk will be today, 11th April 2020. And it's given by me, Dhammadipa. Okay. All right. I mean, there was a little controversy about who write the Abhidharma, so I'm not going to read everything, I'm not going to say everything, but generally, we know that in the earlier time, the Buddhist texts mention about the Abhidharma. So, but there was a lot of scholarly discussion. What does Abhidharma mean at the time? But generally, we definitely understand the Abhidharma mostly is a kind of list of the items of the Dhamma that been kept in the mind of the Buddha's chief disciples. So, and then those things that we kept in the mind as a list. For example, you learn something, so you make a note, but then among the notes, you make the main title or main subtitle of it in order to make a note to remember what the items are. So that's the term what we call, if you can see my, what is that, sorry. If you can see my pointer, my mouse, so here the notes is all called Madrika also, okay. So that's, and then another question is, it seems there were a lot of questions about whether the Abhidharma was spoken by the Buddha, and that's the reason why in certain school or certain Buddhist tradition, they don't like to rely on this source. But then, however, definitely there's no doubt that the Abhidharma been kept or been agreed by after the Buddha passed away, or even during the Buddha's time. Actually, those Buddha's chief disciples, so they have the way to arrange the Buddha's teaching. So that's what generally you could say that as Abhidharma also. But then also, but the reason why we call Abhidharma, of course, in Pali tradition, always saying that is a higher teaching, the most most advanced teaching, the most higher teaching, and the teaching is only taught about the absolute truth, but it's not talk about a conventional truth. In other words, meaning is talk about a practice directly, but there's no any what we call the hidden meaning there, or the intentional meaning. So usually later on, there's a lot of, when you study Buddhism, so sometimes a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion going on about a same Buddhist text. One other thing is because we have to decide, or we have to find out whether the Buddha speak that as a metaphor, or as a just absolute truth, or he might be sometimes even just a joking. Of course, we don't think the Buddha joke, but kind of like that. So in other words, sometimes it's very difficult to see why the Buddha say that way, out of what context the Buddha say that way. But in Abhidharma, you don't have that kind of teachings almost. It's very dry in some way, because it's just literally just to put the Buddhist items. And also, Abhidharma had many different translations also for that. I mean, what does Abhidharma mean? But I like to take it more like a Chinese translation to describe what the Abhidharma mean. Here, generally mean, if Abhidharma is a pure prajna, is a pure wisdom. With this following, it is also prajna, and the treatise which brings about the obtaining of faultless prajna. In other words, basically mean it is why we call that as the confronting to the Dharma, Abhidharma. What does it mean by that? It's because basically it will bring about the obtaining of the faultless wisdom. So that's what I mean by Abhidharma. Okay. So I want to jump all these sources, but I would just want to say that the there are so many Abhidharma texts. I mean, it's one of the most difficult subject when you study Buddhism. Okay. So now today we're talking about the Abhidharma from the Sarvāstivāda school. It's a school. It is said that the school originated in the area in India called Mathura. Okay. So, and also if people are familiar with the place in India, Mathura is a very religious place. If people still remember, almost like 15 years ago in India, there were a kind of riots going on because they want to demolish a Muslim mosque. The reason why these Hindu, especially those belong to one particular school of the Hindu that worship the Krishna god, that they want to demolish that because, of course, they have a long history. They were used to be a Buddhist temple. But when the Muslim colonized India for 800 something years, they have destroyed the Hindu temple, and then they built a Muslim mosque there. But of course, in the modern time, when they have the riot for that, and they try to destroy the Muslim mosque, of course, in the West, usually they condemn the action. I mean, this is not in my judge, but I'm just saying that the reason why the Hindu, you could depend how you like to use them. You could say they're fanatic, but you could say actually they were, now they got the power. Now they want to take back what they believe to be the original birthplace of the Krishna. You see, in Indian religions, Krishna is a very important god. The Krishna god, like even the movement called Hare Krishna. So, and then actually that temple was built. I mean, the Hindu temple was built because it's in memory of the birthplace of the Krishna. So, but anyway, so that place happened in where? In Mathura. That's what I want to say. It's very religious place. Of course, not only just the Krishna god were there, lots of gods in India had highly related to the Mathura. It's kind of in ancient history in India, believing as one of the very religious, kind of like, a good feel, good energy field for spirituality. Anyway, so even though we are not sure the Sarvāstivāda when, I mean, we know the Sarvāstivāda should come right after the Buddha passed away, maybe 200 years. But then where does it started from? It said it's from Mathura. They have a lot of dispute about that too. But then for sure, even the later school called Mula Sarvāstivāda school certainly was established there. Okay. So in other words, it may not be really Sarvāstivāda school stuff from Mathura, but definitely the more, you could say, orthodox. Usually orthodox mean they are more strict. Okay. So the Mula mean the root Sarvāstivāda school. You know that every school is like that. Whenever they say they are root, they are more strict, more conservative. So in this, the conservative school of the Sarvāstivāda definitely come from Mathura. Okay. All right, and beside that also, when we talk about Sarvāstivāda school, there are many sub-schools under the Sarvāstivāda. Now today, the topic we are talking, we would have a lot of time we relate to the Vaipāsika school. Vaipāsika, I know, is a term, a lot of very difficult term for you guys to learn. But then just remember Vaipāsika, just remember there's something called why, something like why, okay, why. So the Vaipāsika, it's the word actually Vaipāsika refer to Vipāsi. Usually Vipāsi, it means the exposition, meaning, explanation, kind of explain expositions. So, but now you refer to that person who believe in this kind of like explanation text. That's why they call, I mean, this is a Sanskrit language. The Vipāsi become Ika as a person, then it become Vaipāsika, mean the person who believe in expositions, so-called Vaipāsika. And these Vaibhasika later on, they have set foot themselves in Kashmir. I mean, people, if they know nowadays the Kashmir, you know that now even Kashmir is almost like a Muslim dominated. But there are quite a large number of the Tibetan Buddhism there too. But they are not Tibetan as a race, but they are actually the Ladakh. The people call that themselves the Ladakhi. But they many learn from Tibetan Buddhism. But otherwise, in the past, they were the center of the Sarvāstivāda, especially this Vaibhasika school. Okay? And another school that was under the Sarvāstivāda is called Sautrantika. Now, today we are not going to talk about him, but he is very important because the word called Sautrantika, because even though they were highly learned of this commentary or expositions, but a lot of time they disagree with that. They come from the same school, but they disagree with that. They always want to stick to the so-called early Buddhist text. Okay, that's called Sautrantika. But today this is not our topic. So now, usually when you learn this Sarvāstivāda, so you have the 7 main Abhidharma texts. And even though if we could finish one of the texts, you are very lucky. But anyway, those are the main texts. But then you have many, many other texts, which are even the volume, the pages is far, 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 far higher than this, more than this. So as a Chinese, if you are Chinese, you have to be very thankful about the person called Xuanzang. He had brought all these texts into Chinese. Nowadays, if it not because of him, translate so many into Chinese during 602 and 664, and some of them, of course, translate earlier before him. But he had full set of translation. So you could see that how he think, how the Xuanzang as the greatest translator in Chinese history, or actually you could say in the world history. So he translated how many books? I think more than 100. And some of them, if you want to translate in English now, I don't know, maybe half of your, it's really, really thousand pages. So, I mean, of course, now people, when you do the Greek translator, you only learn it maybe from the Europe history for English speaker. But if you want to really look at the whole world history, the greater translator who translated the most stuff from one language to another, I could say he would be the one. Okay. And not to say about how difficult that will be, but anyway, he translates most of the text from the Sanskrit into Chinese. And these two languages are the very, very distinctly different language. So I would jump off these kind of pages because this is all about when did he start to translate the text, and you know how much he's been translating. That relate to the Abhidharma. Okay. So I would jump that. This is not today your interest, but I would just scan through it. At least you have a look, have a feel, you know, the profoundness of how much he had translated the text into Chinese. That relate to what we are talking actually. Yeah. All right. Now, let me just say about when you start to learn about the Abhidharma, which we are not going to teach, but normally the way that they teach Abhidharma is certainly it's not just a teaching. It's not a very dry, boring thing. I mean, it is when you read it a little bit, but if you really study it, it's not that. The Abhidharma actually, just a moment, Abhidharma had actually, usually they start from learning what does the form mean, because in meditation, if you really study meditation, doing meditation, you certainly have to learn how to observe the form, and then how to observe the mind, and how to observe the mind concomitant. And also one thing that's very strange to other schools, especially like the Theravada school or some other school, is they have something called a condition factors not associated with the mind. For example, language is one. Language to them, if you say about the word, a sentence, a phrase, to that system, he understands that it's not as something associated with the form. Certainly it's not a form, but then it may be close to the mind, but then you cannot say it belongs to the mind. That's why they say that they call that the condition factors not associated with the mind. Well, yesterday I've been thinking, if one day I want to explain this to people now, what does it mean? What it does mean. I somehow think it may be a little bit more close to metaphysics. It's kind of conceptual thing, but if you say it's a conceptual, then it should be associated with the mind, but it's beyond that. So that's why they also have this kind of grouping. It is one of the subject matter which is very mystical, but at the same time, it's well worth to study. Like a language, how they look at a language. Does language influence us? Yes. But does it belong to the mind? No. Certainly not belong to the form or the material. And also another Abhidharma is called condition. Okay. So they call that as the unconditioned factors. That means the Nibbana. So those are the systems they are applying. Okay, now I've been talking a lot of very dry, very boring thing. I know, even I feel boring. But now let's just back to our subject matter now. So you have a general understanding. Then back to the subject matter that we are talking about. What is meant by that the liberation here? When you practice Buddhism, everybody, the aim, especially when you become renounced as a monks or nuns, and when someone really wanted to, everybody know about the Buddha. The reason that they know about the Buddha is because the Buddha attained enlightenment. Or you could simply understand that enlightenment means refer to that he attains called the liberation. So someone that, like a Buddha, that complete cut off the defilements, attain the highest attainment, and then he might be most powerful after he get attainment. So it depends how people understand that. But there were few definitions I think is agreeable for almost all the Buddhist traditions. For example, like is the attain enlightenment is cut off the reincarnation. He be beyond whatever the world system is about. So once they attain enlightenment, the fully enlightenment, and then he is the most powerful in wisdom. Even though how you define the wisdom could be different from one school to other, but generally there's no doubt that all agree that he certainly know how to cut off the complete defilement so that one would not be reborn again and again. So the Sarvāstivāda path for liberation consists of the 5 that you don't have to remember that, but we'll repeat that again. But if in case you have question later, let me know. So just go to one by one first. The first one we call the path of equipment. In Chinese called 资粮道, okay, Sambhara Marga. Actually, the word Sambhara sometimes it could mean, it means the equipment or the something we must, our main resource, some resource we must have. And then the second one is a path of applications that called Prayoga Marga, but I sometimes also like to not. So the application Prayoga generally, you also can understand as mean you can apply to it to what, for what, to apply for what, to apply for the liberation, of course. And then only when you're fulfilling the part of equipment, then you're fulfilling the part of application. Once you're fulfilling the part of application, you could move to the path of vision and the path of cultivation. So these two are actually, you could simply put these two, the path of vision and the path of cultivation, in Chinese called 见道 and 修道. So these two, so you could include them in the path of application. So because you can apply the path of application to you by using the path of vision and then move to the path of cultivation, then you move to then you move to become the saint. Once you move to become a saint, ultimately you could be able to reach to the path of adept. So in here, Asaisha Marga refer to that, then you become the Arahant. So you have done what you have done. You have no more work to do. Here, of course, to do no more work means your practice. And then you have completely laid down your burden, and you are complete out of the samsara, I mean out of the reincarnation or the suffering. So those are the simple, when you put it in the simple, these 5 paths, when you study the school or you practice under the school, so you have to remember there were 5 paths that you need to follow. Okay, first, when we talk about the path of equipment, so the equipment refer to 2 things also. No, that basically maybe the best to say refer to one. Let's just finish that first. So that refer to one thing that you must able to, it become an helpful thing or aid to the merit. So what kind of thing you need to practice? What kind of thing you need to fulfill? What kind of thing that will help you to gain the merit? The concept of merit, I mean, is to Westerners, sometimes very difficult to understand, but I mean, to the Asian, somehow, because of long culture, even though they never study Buddhism, so somehow know the term, 福报 in Chinese. It is very, very abstract kind of term, the terminology, but they still believe there's almost like whatever you've done. And that what you've done, it could be like stored, you know, metaphysically stored in some way. That storing what you have done, it's that storing almost like you're saving your money, saving your thing. And that saving itself will become a resource for you in your next life or even in this life. So that's what we call merit. And this is certainly is one of the very interesting concept also in Buddhism, not necessarily happen in other religions, but it's very much in Buddhism that will have a lot of topic about how, what kind of, how and what sort of and why, and also explain why nowadays people are become this and that. All these you could say directly relate to the topic of the merit. Okay. If you have a question about the merit, so we can talk that more later, but allow me just to keep on first going on. So it say the merit have 2, I have 3 of them. Oh, sorry, I moved the wrong one. And then one is called the merits by donation, and the merits by moral conduct, the merits by cultivation, and then also one is called divine merits. So now just simply look at the list. We understand among the 5, or before you move to the next path. So the first path is called the path of equipment, asking or suggesting that someone has to, before they really move on further, they must try to cultivate or try to build up this kind of merit. It could be by donation, and then also moral conduct and cultivation and divine merit. So maybe, so let me just say that. So when you say that, you, in other words, mean you have to do the donation. I will talk a little more. And then you need to have the moral conduct so that you have the good merit. And then also the merits that you practice the cultivation or meditation. You simply just translate cultivation. So which simply translate as a cultivation, and the merits that actually belong to almost like the divine. Now, first, we must understand, according to the Buddhist tradition, someone when they begin to practice their meditation, they must also fulfilling a kind of thing. Otherwise, it's a traditional way. Even now, of course, it become a very strong way of believing in Buddhist tradition, or that if someone who can able to really practice Buddhism well, and all these kind of factors has to be fulfilled. One, someone must be fulfilling, that's as a primary, the most basic one, fulfilling the perfection in respect of oneself. What does it mean by respect of oneself? So here it's referred to someone, they have to be born as a human. And then also they must also born in a place, or you could say now they migrate in a place, or like say that you're in America, you have to migrate in a place that have that kind of noble teachings. Otherwise, you have no way to associate that. You don't even know there was something about the liberation, something about, you know, the wonderful Buddhist teachings, so teach us how to liberate, how to live off the suffering and so forth. You must be able to live on that place. Now, do not forget, especially this kind of text been written before Jesus. I mean, basically, or in more precise, to say some of them written in the 1st century or 2nd century. Some of them right before the CE, before the Christ. So of course, that at the time, you know, the place you were born or where you could roaming around is very important. And not like nowadays in the internet, you could at least you can listen to talk from far distance. But you know, say that about those things. But generally, you could simply understand a modern version saying that someone has to be able to listen to the teachings. And then also that person also must also not having a problem physically. They have two meanings for that. One meaning definitely mean physical, you know, like they couldn't hear, they can read, they can write, and so forth. Because if they have, I mean, that refer to especially if you think you want to become fully commit yourself into that practice as a monk or as a nun. So then usually in a Buddhist tradition, so if you are lack of, like you have no leg or no hand or you're blind, very unfortunate in Buddhist tradition, so you're not allowed to become monks and nun. Of course, you still can practice, but it just, you are not allowed to become a monk. So this is why I say include in perfection in respect of oneself. And also that also including, even though when you're able to listen to the teachings, you also will be delighting it. You know, yeah, you may be born as a human, you are born in have a place that you have teachings, Buddhist teachings, you have a good master giving you instruction, you have no problem with all organs. And so, but then you might be not believing it. You are not delighting that. Yeah, maybe you believe in it, but you don't feel pleasure to listen to that because this is not what you're interested in. So that's why it also means something called perfection in respect of oneself. And the last one, among the 5, you'll be saying that mean you could able to live the bad karma. You know, sometimes you have those that you're interested in teaching, but I know you're so poor, you have no money, you cannot travel, you cannot do this, you cannot do that because you want to spend your whole life just to earning, you know, like that. Or because even though, yes, you have money, you have no those problems, but your parents were not around you, you know. Or maybe, yes, you are okay, fine, but you know, your partner, you know, your couples, and or maybe your children, I don't know. So I'm not allowing. This is so that those are called not perfection in respect of oneself. And the second requirement or second thing is not to respect to others. So let me see, did I put it back? Yeah, perfection in respect to others. The others here just simply pretty short. I don't want to speak word by word now in the detail now, but pretty short generally mean refer to, of course, the others have to refer to that they were born of the Buddha. So maybe you are having all those quality with you, but then when you were born before the born of the Buddha, so you kind of living in the dark age, refer to that there were no Buddhist, no master, no Buddha were aroused, no Buddha were arisen. So the Buddha will not arise, and there's no saint who followed Buddha teaching arise, and there's no teaching directly taught by the Buddha. So then, of course, then there's no perfection in respect to others. So, okay, let's just move on to the wholesome aspiration for the teachings. Now, this is interesting. So this is something about you have to must have this, must have the passion. Maybe I will translate wholesome passion for the teaching. So you must also have the passion for that subject. So even though you might fulfilling those qualities, in earlier, the first one, the second one. But if you do not have the passion, and the rest, the serious practice would not be coming to fulfilling. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is called restraint in morality. Now, there are two terms here. It's not just morality, but there's another term called restraint. Restraint refers to, you understand by restraint, let's say you understand, when there's a chance, we certainly want to commit something, because in order to, how to say, quicker to get what you want. So, but then sometimes when you understand there was not correct to do so, so you need to learn to restrain. Okay. For example, we say maybe, like we don't lie. For example, for saying that. So sometimes you do find that when you lie, it's much easier. But then you definitely need to learn how to restrain yourself not to lie, so that you will be able to fulfilling or perfecting your morality. Okay. It's a big topic too, but I mean, this is just a simple guideline. At least you have an outline or the framework, what does it mean by restraint in morality. And the fifth one is restraint of senses. Restraint of senses. Maybe let me just back to what is meant by restraint in morality also. So, for example, if you feel shameful, when I say shame, in English, shame is not a very good term. It's like you feel sorry for yourself and you feel sorry for the other. So when you're able to fulfill that kind of good quality, so it helps you, it's a restraint itself. It helps you develop your morality. The same thing for verbally or physically or even mentally. I mean, verbally may be easier. You don't want to swear to people, you restrain. So that's why that's how you fulfill your morality. But physically, I mean, it's the same thing. Sometimes you want to hit someone, you really get angry. Or maybe you do some, maybe do some action, so you want to disturb the other persons. And that's also, you could just do the restraint. So in order to have the good morality. The same for the mental even. I need to mention this because first I need to mention the word mean you feel sorry yourself and the other. It's called, you could say, if you commit anything wrong, even a slight wrong, slightless wrong thing, But the other stress is the mental action. In order to purify, it's also called a restraint. So even some thought, I mean, usually people say, why is such a big deal? Then I said, let me tell you, say that a woman sit in front of you. So you were thinking about something very, very nasty towards the woman. I mean, of course, unless a woman really like you, flirting with you, that might be another question. But say in general, of course, if you, I don't know how to say that. If you really can tell that woman that I'm thinking about that, like, really nasty thing, not very nice thing about woman, it's just thinking, right? It's just the mental actions. So, but that the woman will feel upset also, because they will find that you're not respecting her. So, I mean, this is a kind of like, it's called restraint. So when you find that, like, that kind of thought comes along and you need to restrain it, oh, this is not very respectful to a person. So you change your idea. So this is how you become purified. So this is what we call the restraint in morality. And the other thing, the restraint, I was talking about 4 things already, right? The physical, the verbal, the mental, and then the shamefulness and like that for oneself and others. And then the other one is called ajiva. In other words, mean the livelihood. So you have to be restrained your livelihood, like, you know, whatever the profession you have. Like, you know, as a monk, we have our livelihood. You have a different profession, and different profession have a livelihood. So on that kind of livelihood, you need to learn how to restrain. So, you know, it's not like, okay, look at the other people can do it. Why couldn't I do it? You know, let's say, for example, if you're a professor. So, I mean, student may be cheating. They do that cheating and this and that. And they might be do something as a student. It doesn't mean it's allowed, it's good. But I mean, it would be more dangerous. It would be more damage to that person if he's a professor doing the same thing. Like that. So that's why it's called the restraint in livelihood, you know. So that being due to the livelihood, it learn how to restrain. So that's why that morality itself will develop. That will purify the person. So that's why it means by 5 kinds of restraint. All right. Now, beside the restraint of this morality, and then you have the 5th one, restraint of the senses. Why senses? Because yes, you have all those restraints. If you're a really serious practitioner, that is not enough. You need to have restraint in your senses, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, and your physical body. Especially if you're, I always say, giving an example, like if you're really serious about your study, say that you're just writing a report, you want to write thesis or report or even dissertation, or write some articles. So you that time when you want to focus and to do writing your report, you do not like normal day as a leisure day or your bad habit, or even sometime, or even just you take it a little bit like loosely, fine. You want a little good time for yourself, so-called a good time, maybe in the modern English. So it's like you want to watch a TV, watch some show, listen to the nice music, that's when better eyes, that's when better ears. And then, or maybe you want to feel nice, just sit there and smell something nice, you feel aroma, good aroma for you. Or you thought, oh, I might have a good food, having this food and therefore nice food. Or maybe you have some people massage or lie on the sofa, you feel really comfortable, or massage chair that do the massage for you. All this is called like the senses, what we call the 5 core senses. Yes, as a human, we need that because to make a comfort. And that's why we have the energy to live. Or we feel that's a delightness to live. But that kind of senses, when you practice meditation now, this is what our topic now is about, the path, right? So if you really want to serious on the path, and this is actually the more or less a serious topic. I don't know whether you like it to hear. Unfortunately, we are on the way now. You have no choice. So this is about, you need to learn to restrain. Don't, when you see, you know you see, you just don't continue to see. If you find that will give you a defilement, so give you a problem. If you smell something, you know you're smelling, but you do not encourage to smell more. So that including whether you smell something nice or not nice. So like that, especially I think the physical one. The restraint of the sense is very, very easier for you to know later when we do meditation. We are about to do meditation. So that you know, because you need to restrain. You feel like, oh, I feel tired, body no cannot sustain my body. Oh, I feel this is sore here. Oh, I feel here is hard. So, but that kind of physical body is always there, not because you meditate. It's just because you quiet down. You will not allow yourself, or kind of like you make yourself more open to your mind or to observe whatever happening, rather than you just ignore it. It is there. So if you learn to ignore it, just okay, let me just watch a TV, another TV. So I forget my body is like that. So let me eat something nice. I feel chewy, very chewy, very juicy, very nice. So you forget your body. But anyway, So, but when you do meditation, unfortunately, you start to learn restraint. Something, you close your eye, you don't smell that much, you have not having any good thing on your mouth at least, and you have not open any music around. What you will do? You will listen. You will listen. I would say you will generally pay more attention on your physical body. This is why you need to learn restraint. So when whatever happens in the physical body, yes, different method, meditation maybe teach you different way of doing it, but somehow that is called restraint. Because restraint in terms of you restrain yourself so that you will not allow yourself indulge with the senses. Okay. Let me just go through the other lists and then we do meditation. The other list is quickly. So, and then you have 6 moderation. The 6th one is moderation in food. Of course, if you practice meditation seriously, you are not like guttering, become a gutterer. So you just eat enough just to sustain your physical body for your practices or cultivation. And the second one, to stay awake and meditating in the first and the last watch of the night. Normally, if you're really a diligent meditator, so at least in this kind of system, they will suggest you, so you don't sleep until 10 o'clock. So I think it's, let me see, 6 to 9, 6. Or actually, you don't sleep until 12 o'clock. Of course, usually you can sleep at 9. You start to go to sleep at 9 o'clock if you need about 6 hours to sleep. And then you wake up at 3 o'clock. Those are the tradition in those days. Now we change a lot because of light. We have light, we have bulb. But in those days, if you are really become a very good meditator, diligent one, you sleep about around 12 o'clock, you wake up 3 o'clock. So that's mean by you're staying awake and meditate in the first and the last watch. The last watch refer to the 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So, and the other one, then you do dwelling in the clear awareness and the quality of virtual friend. So I just simply, for the time's sake, just simply say, you need to dwell in understanding what you're doing. If you're sitting, you must know you're sitting. You're standing, you must know you're standing. All this awareness you must establish, including when you go out, when you're coming back, you always keep your awareness. Maybe just put it in a simple sentence, you always keep your awareness. Or you always keep in the mind what you want to practice. And you do not let go of what you're practicing. And then also, in any kind of posture, you must understand your posture. So like that. And the ninth one is the quality of virtual friend. You need to find the good friend. Here, the good friend refer to your teacher as a friend, okay? In Buddhism, except we talk about the Buddha, all your master is also referred as a very good friend. So, and also your friend that you maybe practice together. So you need this kind of friends. Otherwise, your practice you will not able to continue your practice. You'll be very easy to be discouraged on being deviated from what your original aim.